because we've got a lot to discuss when it comes to the future of Ethereum. If that is something close to your heart, be sure to listen closely. My name is Matt. I lead BD for Redstone, which is an Oracle provider. I'll give you a brief introduction to what we do at Redstone in a minute, but before that, I would love our great panelists to introduce themselves today so that everybody can be on the same page. So Mike, why don't we start with you? What's EtherFi? What do you do on the team? How does it work for you guys?
Yeah, sounds good. Hi, everyone. My name is Mike. I'm the founder and CEO of EtherFi. EtherFi is the fourth largest crypto protocol by TVL. I guess depending on the day, we're about 7 billion in assets. And we have a suite of integrated products that create effectively a banking alternative for users. So where users are able to save, stake, deposit, deploy their assets in DeFi, and then spend and borrow against their DeFi assets.
Perfect. Sandy, why don't you jump in and tell us something more about Scroll and what do you do on the team?
Yeah, well, it's great to be here. It's great to see so many people. So I'm a co-founder for Scroll, and we've been building for about 4 years now on a holistic blockchain solution that is both secure and performant. We're layer 2 on Ethereum, and we're here to support builders and various financial applications that can increase financial access and using smart contract platforms to build more creative things.
Perfect. And when it comes to Redstone, we are an Oracle provider specializing in yield-bearing collateral for lending markets. And we have been in the trenches when it comes to Ethereum for a couple of years now, actually working with both of our panelists and their protocols, both with EtherFi and Scroll as well. And there's big things coming for us over at Redstone. Probably next week is going to be one of the biggest weeks in the history of the company. So just a little show from my side, but be sure to stay tuned on that one as well. Follow us on Twitter. Now, that being said, that has been a quite a wild year, I would say, for Ethereum, quite a roller coaster in terms of the price action, that's one, the sentiment, that's two, but also the whole discussion that has been happening in terms of the fundamentals of the chain, the ecosystem, in terms of value capture, in terms of the future of what we want to build here. So why don't we start with a simple question? When you open a Twitter app and you go and search for Ethereum, the sentiment is pretty bad, I would say, at this point. What's your guys' take, high level? Is it as bad as it seems on the fundamental side of things? Or are we on the right track, but it's just a fad that is just going to fade away quite quickly? Mike, why don't we start with you?
Well, so much of it has to do with just the broader market, right? The price action just hasn't been great. And it's important not to confuse sort of the fundamentals of a product with kind of the ups and downs of a market. In terms of sentiment, we have maybe some additional insight from the internals of the Ethereum Foundation and kind of what goes on within Ethereum broadly. So it feels actually that there's a lot of cause to be optimistic based on some of the changes that are taking place. And so I feel like we've kind of bottomed out. The meme coin mania feels like it's topped out and now is very rapidly kind of declining. And so I'm actually very optimistic about the next the next few years around Ethereum.
Sandy?
I would say Ethereum price action has been surprisingly steady despite the entire market ups and downs. I would arguably think of it as a stable coin by now. And the stability is a joke, but it's rooted around the idea that the ecosystem has blossomed and is very, very decentralized. And there's been a lot of community criticism around Ethereum not doing a great job at advocating for its position within the market. But another way to look at it is that there's an open space for anyone within the ecosystem to kind of take that role and present their vision. And when I think about Ethereum infra side of development, there's a lot of things happening under the surface. from increasingly faster and faster ZK proofs being produced to account abstraction, innovation, and key store and UX improvements. All of these things are done by different teams around the world, and in aggregate, I think in 2 to 3 years' time, will be super clear in setting Ethereum ecosystem as a whole as categorically and also holistically the best blockchain to work on. That is both decentralized, secure, and super scaled. And I don't see any other ecosystem that has that level of vibrancy and different paths to this ultimate vision as Ethereum. On the application level, there's also a lot of innovation. The fact that EtherFi being the 4th largest protocol only started like relatively recently. And so that just shows it's an open economy where new players have a clear shot at bringing something unique to the ecosystem, and there are still lots of open spaces to build.
Maybe the only thing, if I may add, is just there's so much exciting stuff getting built on Ethereum. It really does feel fair to say that it's really the hub around blockchain innovation as far as just interesting protocols, people experimenting with crazy ideas. And the broader TradFi market knows none of it. Like if you talk to a random TradFi market investor, ask them about ETH versus BTC, from their perspective, it's like 2 different tickers. Okay, BTC, oh, that's the big one. ETH is number 2. There's zero understanding effectively about the idea of DeFi, that there are actual products being built on Ethereum that generate revenue. People are building real cash flow generating businesses in this space, and TradFi doesn't, there's very little awareness of that, and I view that as an opportunity. I think we are starting to see the Ethereum Foundation become more vocal and go out there and communicate about all the great stuff that's happening in the ecosystem, and I think that's their role. I think they should be doing more of that, and so the fact that they're starting to makes me feel optimistic about the future.
I like your guys' optimism. It really shows that you've spent some serious time as founders as well, because optimism is one of the best predictors of future success, for example, in professional sports. I think for founders, this is also a very good predictor. I would say I kind of agree with your agreements as well, but for the sake of the discussion, let me take the other side of that coin. The thing that really makes me uneasy as a holder of ETH, where ETH is a serious portion of my net worth as well, is the fact that, I've spent some serious time in startups as well, enough to know that focus and clarity on the principles and the vision, the goal, the one single thing that you want to build is of utmost importance. And then, citing John Charbonneau here, he's done this very good post, one of the shortest posts of his. It's only like 58 minutes of reading, where he basically breaks down the ecosystems that we have right now, some of the biggest ones. We've got ETH, Solana, Bitcoin, and Celestia. And when you look at all of them, everybody has a very, very clear goal in mind for which the infrastructure is very much optimized. So Bitcoin, obviously the digital gold, this is, I would say, self-explanatory. When it comes to Solana, it's increased bandwidth, reduced latency. When it comes to Celestia, it's the big blocks. It's, you're not going to be able to fit the whole internet on a single state machine, so we have to build for modular, we have to bring the costs down of operating something like a rollup. Whereas Ethereum, there is many discussions on should we optimize for the L1, should we optimize for the L2, should we optimize for the optimistic L2s or ZKVMs, should we try to be something else that we are trying to be right now. So a lot of discussion and not a single clear vision in terms of where exactly we would like to go. Some of the best people in that space, or some of the most vocal people in that space, leaving for a variety of reasons, like Mike Stresnick going to the Solana land as well. So those things kind of made me uneasy, because I don't see a single clear hypothesis that I would really buy into as an investor, as a builder as well. What's your take on that? Is it the default state of how things should be at this stage of maturity of the ecosystem, that we are just building for a variety of different things? Or is it a structural problem in terms of not knowing what exactly we want to do?
I'll take this one. I love John's research reports. They're very succinct and very clear and frames the problem he sees super well. And I think his research sometimes includes a very big bag bias as well. And I call it Celestia bag over logic bias. So I think all of these different frameworks to analyze blockchain systems is super interesting. And if you look at any vertical, any single vertical, it's very easy to claim you're the best. So it's very easy for us to claim we are the best L2 because we have the highest uptime. We have the best L2 because we have the fastest ZK proofs. We're the best L2 because we have the fastest finality. And another L2 might talk about, oh, we have the biggest TVL, or we have the most users. There are multiple different, there are multiple facets to what makes the best blockchain. And I think in the case of Ethereum, if you if you zoom in on any of these single vectors, for example, the size of the block or how fast transactions are, there will be another blockchain that is better on that single vertical. But the way I think about which decentralized system will ultimately prevail in the long term, it's a mixture of all of these things put together. It's on principle, is there still a philosophy around a value choice? Do we pick decentralization and security over scaling? Do we prioritize visibility? Do we prioritize app user experience? All of these value decisions determines the long-term and wider direction of where the ecosystem goes. And in the short term, a plethora of ideas and different pathways to achieve the ultimate goal is healthy. And the best ideas can battle out, and people can vote with their wallets, people can vote with their Twitter accounts, and people can vote with their thesis. And but there is when it comes to technology adoptions, there is a fundamental truth to it, which is Lindy effect matters. And also the truth to it is that I think Ethereum is still in the best place when you think about holistically, security and decentralization, while being as fast and accessible as possible. So I think as long as we're on a collective path to building the best holistic platform, and the social consensus is strong, and there is a very builder-focused culture, I think Ethereum is still, got a very strong lead on any other blockchain. So I expect every year there will be a faster blockchain, and every year there will be technology innovation that comes out that makes a new L1 more robust or more faster in some sense. But it's about that. Ethereum is essentially trying to change the plane engine while it's still flying. And it's been flying for a really long time, and it's been flying steadily. And a lot of what we're building with ZK and what we're building in terms of protocol scaling, these things can essentially be plugged back into the plane once it's more mature. And I think a direction that we're super excited to kind of take on as an active member of the Ethereum community is that we're picking out EIPs in the future pipeline of Ethereum development and building it out. So we're building out new precompiles we're shipping new precompiles on a once every 2 week basis. And what that means is that we can iterate a lot faster and respond to builders' requests and enable more application level innovation. If you remember, the ICO phase was a huge kind of boom in Ethereum activity, and then NFT was another huge kind of period of chain enabled, EIP enabled innovation, where we're trying to capture the next one by kind of taking the responsibility in our own hands to kind of build, do more loops of discoverability to find the next big thing. And I don't see any other ecosystem that is decentralized enough or have any other organization outside of the foundation that has that kind of ability and agency to build and contribute to the core protocol. So that's a very long-winded way of saying like super bullish on Ethereum, and the strength lies in its decentralization, and different people see different opportunities, and there are different touch points to discover new builder requirements.
Mike,
maybe I'll...
just one point to that one. When it comes to that point, that question, how does it make you feel as a builder, a businessman that's essentially very much tied with the success of Ethereum as a platform that you build on? Is it something that you worry about, or are you as optimistic as Sandy is for the future?
I'll say two things. I think if you're building a real business that has customers that are getting value from your product, you should not be dependent on the ecosystem, the particular blockchain that you happen to build on. Because if you are, then are you really building products for people that value the services that you're providing, or are you really just trying to ride the hype wave? And so, as much as obviously I love Ethereum, our success really is going to be driven by our ability to provide great products for people. I want to make, you mentioned a comment around Solana, IBRL is their North Star, and it's super clear. And I think they've actually done a great job of making it super clear. The North Star around Ethereum, the Ethereum ecosystem, has been roll-up centric roadmap. That's, everything around the development over the last, 5-6 years has really focused on that, enabling tons and tons of layer 2s, big variety of those to build on Ethereum. And we've seen the success of that. We see every major institution building an Ethereum, a layer 2 that settles to Ethereum. So there's success there. The challenge that Ethereum has had is that has come at the expense of scaling the L1. And what makes me optimistic is now it seems like the mindset has shifted, that you need to do both. That you need to scale the layer 1, reduce gas prices, increase transactions per second, while at the same time, of course, supporting the thriving roll-up ecosystem. So I don't actually think that, I think the problem has been a communication problem. There needs to be I think lots of folks, let's say, need to do a better job of communicating that North Star and what matters to Ethereum.
Perfect. So let's dive a little bit deeper into that and specifically talk about value. And I think it's great that we have you guys as panelists today representing an L2 and a protocol, end user facing protocol built on top of Ethereum and the L2s as well. Because what I would love to get from you is some insights on specifically what value do you get from Ethereum itself, the ecosystem, the L1. For example, starting with you, Sandy, while building something like an L2, why not just go the completely sovereign way and try to build an L1? Why choose L2 and becoming a part of the Ethereum ecosystem these days?
I think first of all, when we were thinking about this issue, is that we think there is a lot of Lego pieces and tooling that are already existing in Ethereum, and that's part of the original dev-focused culture that has arisen. And so there's already a lot of existing tools within Ethereum. It makes no sense to rebuild them. And secondly, I think Solidity is coming up as the default smart contract language for any kind of new innovation within decentralized protocol building. So that's another, I often use the analogy, I think of it as English as being the default international business language, just like Solidity is becoming somewhat the default universal decentralized application building language. And the second thing is because we think the value add, like the initial insight that drove us to build Scroll is that theoretical ZK can be applied to scaling Ethereum. And we designed Scroll with the concept of, and we are close collaborators with the Ethereum Foundation. And there is a version of the ZK EVM that can be upgraded and plugged into L1. So the long-term roadmap, the way we see it, is that L1 will scale, but we don't want EF to or EFs shouldn't take on the sole responsibility of designing like one version that is going to be the best version. So I think there is a vision where this whole garden analogy, where we build a ZK EVM that's working, we test it out in the wild, and we test with multiple protocols building on Scroll, and eventually, if it works and it's very robust, then a lot of the key elements can be plugged back into the L1. And we're contributors to the base rollup, and then the base rollup as a design concept, and also the native rollup design concept. All of these are based on our experience and learnings from building Scroll as a working L2. And so I think the challenges of doing things this way, or the pros of doing it, is that ETH L1 can continue running, and ETH is the only chain that has run continuously during almost the last, 7 or 8 years without stopping. And that's very important for someone to even start thinking about putting a large percentage of their assets on chain, and that is the fundamental basis of that trust. So how do you upgrade this consensus and adding new and nascent technology? I think L2 is a very good testing ground and experimental zone for these things.
I see. So basically an existing garden of infrastructure, but also being able to kind of contribute to the main layer and kind of steer it in a way that's just going to be super sustainable. Yeah. Mike, when it comes to you, as you said, the success of the decentralized application basically is basically a project on its own. It's not tightly coupled with the chain that it's based on. And presumably, as you look at the history of technology, the value tends to go upwards to the layer that really has interactions with the end user, which is the apps in this specific case. So why, as a DApp builder, why as a product builder, should I choose the Ethereum ecosystem or Ethereum L1 these days? What does it give you? What's the value that you can get from it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer is really simple. The question, I guess, is do you give a shit about crypto? In other words, do you just want to build some centralized thing that has enough decentralization theater that allows you to launch a token and grift? Or do you actually care about the original sort of cypherpunk and crypto values? We do. I do. I actually want to build on a foundation that respects those values, and I think is truly censorship resistant, incredibly neutral. I think these things actually matter. So there's no other platform to build on. I mean, there is no alternative smart contract platform that I think fits the bill if you actually give a shit about crypto. If you're short-term minded, you're thinking the next 6 to 12 months, how can you suck some cash out of the giant decentralized casino? Fine, but if you actually want to focus on building long-lasting products that survive the test of time, then you got to build on Ethereum.
So let's say I come here from traditional finance and I don't really understand as deeply the decentralization aspect as I would have if I am Web3 native as I am right now. So what would be in terms of economic terms, P&L, or just building a startup, what would be the value, the one-liner that you would give for Ethereum as opposed to other chains? Just replacing the word decentralization with something that's like closer to the traditional business.
I think the market learns its lessons through kind of a series of calamities. As things blow up, the market develops sort of taboos and fears around what not to do. And we're seeing lots of stuff blowing up around us, and we're seeing Ethereum continue kind of happily chugging along. So I think the pitch will be, look, you build on Ethereum because that's where you go not to blow out. And so over time, I think that that memory, that collective memory, will kind of converge on Ethereum as the place to be.
A couple of closing thoughts on that. So it seems like some of the most important fundamental aspects are in place. The infrastructure is well developed. We've got a proliferation of things to choose from that we can actually build with. And the security aspect, in terms of making a business that's going to be super sustainable, is just second to none on Ethereum. And I guess the biggest problems that we have right now is communication and making sure the narrative is in line with what we are actually building here. So let's hope we can actually fix this within the next 12 months, and ETH can get back to what it should be when it comes to the sentiment on Twitter. Thank you so much. Thanks for the panel, and let's see you guys at the venue later on. Thank you.